Today we're going to work on the procedure for dividing decimals. In the past few days we've worked on dividing whole numbers using long division. Today we're going to add decimal points. We're going to add decimal points in the dividend, and we're going to add decimal points in the divisor. Our rules for dividing decimal, first off, we're talking about when we only have a decimal in the dividend. It's a fairly simple rule. When we only have a decimal in the dividend, as you can see in our first example here, all we're going to do is bring that decimal point straight up above our division bar, and then just follow our normal rules for long division. So in my example here, I've got $2.78, and I'm dividing that by the whole number 3. So I like to use the analogy, write it as you read it. So as I'm reading it, I'm going to write it so I know what is the proper number that goes inside the division cage. So 42.78 divided by 3. And that tells me that I know that the 3 is on the outside of the cage in my divisor, and 42.78 is inside for my dividend. Now, in my two rules, it's very simple in this case. I'm just going to bring the decimal point straight up, and I do that very much like I did when we went through the lesson on adding and subtracting decimals. I like to bring it down first when I add and subtract decimals so I don't forget it. Same thing with division. Go ahead and bring it up so that you know exactly where it is when you're dividing. So now you just go through your rules for long division. I'm going to go ahead and put my money symbol up. 3 can go into 4 one time. 3 times 1 is 3. Subtract, I got 1 left over, bring down my 2. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12, nothing left over, bring down my 7. 3 goes into 7 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. Subtract those 2 and get 1 left over. And lastly, bring down your 8. And 3 goes into 18 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Nothing left over. So I know that I've got $14.26 when I divide it 3 ways equals 42.78. To check my work, I would multiply 14.26 times 3 and hope that my dividend comes out to 42.78. The next situation we're going to go over is when I have a whole number in my dividend but a decimal in my divisor. So once again, I'm going to write it as I read it. 114 divided by 0.04. Now, we have a situation where we can't ever have a decimal in our divisor if we're not using a calculator, but I have a whole number here. And what I'm going to tell you that I would like for you to do is always turn the whole number in the dividend into a decimal. Go ahead and put your decimal point down at the end, and always add 1 or 2 zeros, probably 2 just to be safe. Extend your division cage there, and now you essentially have a decimal divided by a decimal. Now, when I have a decimal in the divisor, what I want to do is turn it into a whole number. So I have to move the decimal point, the number of spots to the right, that's going to make that a whole number. In this case, I've got 2 spots that I want to move it to the right to turn that into a 4. Now, the rule for dividing decimals is if I move it on the divisor, I also have to move it on the dividend. I can't just bring it straight up at this point. I have to go ahead and move that decimal point that I've added here. So since this is now 114.00 and I moved this twice, I also have to move this twice. Now that I've moved it, I want to go ahead and bring it up and then add a 0 or 2 at the end, just to be safe in case I need those spots. So now what I have is 11,400.00 divided by 4. Now I'm back to just a long division problem. I'm asking myself, can 4 go into 1? No, it cannot, so I'm either going to put an X or a 0 at the top. And now I ask myself, can 4 go into 11? 4 goes into 11 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 left over. Bring down my 4. Now, how many 4s go into 34? The answer is 8. 8 times 4 is 32. I subtract and I have 2 left over. Bring down my 0. How many 4s go into 20? The correct answer is 5. 5 times 4 comes out to 20 exactly. I have nothing left over, but I'm not finished here. I still have place value spots with zeros. So I have to continue to bring down a 0 and ask myself, can 4 go into that 0? No, it cannot, so I have to fill that spot. And now I'm finished because I have used all of those spots. To check my work, I would take 2,850 times 4, and it should come out to 11,400. Now in our final example here, I've got a decimal divided by a decimal. So inside my dividend is a decimal already there, and outside on my divisor is also a decimal. So I'm going to follow the very same rules I did once I created a decimal in my dividend in the last example. So I'm going to change the divisor into a whole number by moving the decimal point to the right. I'm going to move the decimal and the dividend over the same amount of places, bring the decimal up, and then divide. So on our final example here, I'm going to write it as I read it. 182.88 divided by 0.08. Now I can see here that I have 2 decimal places in the divisor that I need to move it over to make it 8. So I'm going to move that over twice. I'm going to move this over twice, put my decimal point in and up, and add a couple zeros at the end in case I need them. So now I have 18,288.00 divided by the whole number 8 here. So once I have moved the decimal over in my divisor, moved the decimal point over in my dividend, now I'm back to just normal long division. I'm going to ask myself, can 8 go into 1? It cannot, so I can put an X or a 0 up in that placeholder. Now how many 8s go into 18? I think it's 2. 2 times 8 is 16. I have 2 left over. Bring down my 2. How many 8s go into 22? I think it's 2. 2 times 8 is 16. And 22 take away 16 is going to be 6. Now how many 8s go into 68? 8 times 8 is 64. I think that's as close as we can get. 4 left over. Bring down my 8. 8 goes into 48. I think it goes in an even amount of times, 6 times. 8 times 6 is 48. I have nothing left over, so I don't even need to use my decimal point and zeros at the end because 2286.00 is the same as 2286. So to recap the lesson, the most important thing is placement of the decimal point if it's already in the divisor. If it's already in the divisor and you're dividing by a whole number, we just want to bring that decimal point straight up and use our rules for long division. When we have a decimal point in the divisor and the dividend, we must turn that decimal point in the divisor into a whole number first, move the decimal point over in the dividend the same number of places, and then follow our rules for long division. Just like anything we've done in the past, staying organized and nice and neat with our steps going down, showing our work is very key, and then checking our work at the end as well.